Welcome to TIRIAS Cast. This is Francis Sadeko, and no, you don't have to check your TV screens. You're not seeing double. I am joined today by my two colleagues, Jim McGregor and Damien McGregor, who I'm going to start calling the traveling McGregors because they've been all around the world the last couple of months. Latest trip is they just both came back from Computex in Taiwan. And for those that don't know, Computex is the largest PC technology show in the world. And they definitely came back with a few nuggets. So, Jim, maybe I'll start with you. What are some of your initial thoughts coming back?
It was hot and humid. No, just kidding. It was actually, it's a great show to be at, to see technology and talk to everyone. Obviously, it is focused on PCs, but there's always announcements that extend into data center and gaming and you name it. Obviously, the biggest announcement and the thing that really took the wind out of everyone's sails was from NVIDIA and its partners announcing RTX Spark. So basically taking the GB10 chipset that's used in the DGX Spark mini workstation and putting it into notebooks and small form factor PCs with full Windows support. Some of the names announced with future laptops would be MSI, Dell, HP, Lenovo, I think ASUS. So I mean, we're going to see full support with this when it launches later on this year. However, it is going to be interesting because obviously, this is really designed for a workstation, and it's kind of an optimal configuration, at least for a workstation, is 120 gigabytes. That would make for a very expensive PC. But even with some of the memory limitations, even if you take it down to a 16 gig, it's still going to be a fairly expensive. It's going to be on the higher end of the PC segment. So it'll be interesting. And a lot of those vendors are also launching with small form factor PCs, which we kind of think will become a AI appliance eventually, not just a PC for creators and AI developers. So that was kind of the biggest thing. NVIDIA also had announced with Unitree an H2 research robot. So for developers and researchers, where they can actually buy a robot, have full access to the software stack, and have the latest silicon technology from NVIDIA in it with the Jetson Thor platform. Now, this also is not going to be, some of the prices I've seen for this are anywhere from like $68,000 upwards of $100,000. We don't really know yet because it'll be available later. But at least we're moving into that phase with physical AI from, just everyone working on individual things to where we're actually going to have a developer platform essentially for humanoid robots. Now, beyond that, there were a lot of other announcements around new PCs, around new handheld gaming consoles. And, there were definitely processor announcements from Qualcomm, AMD, Intel, as we would expect, kind of enhancing their product lines.
So before we delve too much into those kinds of topics, so when you say RTX Sparks could potentially be a home AI appliance, are you saying everybody's going to be able to have a Jarvis in their home, basically?
Actually, yes, I think so. But when you think the fact that this may actually be a multimedia interface, I'm thinking more like Max Headroom. But
okay.
No, so I'm dating myself there.
Yeah, you might be dating yourself. I was trying to go for some of the younger guys, but you got to go back to our age if you're going to go Max Headroom.
but no, I think that, what we're seeing, and this goes kind of across the AI spectrum, especially for physical AI, when you have robotics, you're going to need something locally that can run the larger language models, do sensor fusion amongst multiple devices, and orchestration amongst multiple devices. And that's not necessarily all going to be on device, whether it's a robot, a smartphone, a smart TV, a smart appliance, or whatever. So we think that eventually there is going to be, that mini server or that AI appliance in the home to be able to do some of this stuff. And, is also that major link to the larger models in the cloud. So, and we see a lot of interest in that, not just, obviously right now from developers and creators to be able to have that small appliance, but we think that maybe this becomes a major appliance for the home going forward.
So for the PC devices that would consume RTX Sparks, Spark. Do you foresee that as definitely still kind of a, you said higher end, do you foresee that definitely being kind of a professional device, or do you think even like you mentioned it's Windows on ARM, so could it be appropriate for maybe like STEM majors or engineering students who need to run some of those kind of higher end applications or higher performing applications even at the university level?
Oh, absolutely. Matter of fact, I think that's the initial niche for the market, and Damien can comment on this a little bit more. But I really think because it is an ARM device, you're still going to have maybe some software compatibility issues for some time. You know, it's not going to be perfect for every application. It's not really going to be perfect for gaming until everything is ported to it. So I think the real entry point for that device, and once again, depending on how much memory you put in it, this could be a $2,000 device. This could be a $5,000 device. I think the initial entry point is really the developer and the creator. So anybody that's doing content creation or especially AI development, I think this is a potential platform for them. What do you think, Damien?
Yeah, I would be inclined to agree, especially because STEM majors or college students in particular normally tend to lean towards more budget-friendly laptops. They don't know if they're going to buy a laptop that's going to last them just for school or all the way beyond school for whatever they intend to do for work. So this is kind of ideal, like you said, for the developers or the people who are focused on AI development, particularly if it's not entirely gaming focused, which is always sort of a high priority for college students, even if it's not entirely academic related.
Yeah, I only ask because we have two of our interns that are still in engineering school. So maybe we can get a couple of these devices and get them to try it out. But let's head over to you.
We've had a couple of the OEMs offer, so hopefully we will see them. But once again, we won't see them till later on the year. So final pricing and availability hasn't been set, and quite honestly, that may change just because of memory availability.
Yeah, absolutely. David, let's cut over to you. What were some of your kind of observations?
Well, I think the key focus this year at Computex was entirely on agentic AI and what devices support that at every level, from mobile personal computing, personal agents, enterprise workforce agents, and even data center robotics, full system controlled AI systems, and even AI supported networking.
Absolutely. I think agentic AI, as each of these shows happen, agentic AI, but also physical AI, we're continuing to see, evolutions of capability, infrastructure that's going to make that a reality. That's obviously on one side of things, but on another side is, I know, Jim, you and I were talking offline. It was interesting maybe what didn't happen at Computex, which is kind of on the maybe lower end or mass market. Damien, you mentioned a little bit about kind of more budget-friendly tiers, for demographics like students and so forth. But it didn't seem like there was a lot going on there, especially in light of the fact that Apple did announce a few products targeted at that space. Jim, what were your thoughts on that?
Well, especially the MacBook Neo, and that seems to be cleaning the market. At a $599 price point, using basically their M4 smartphone processor, they are capturing a lot of interest in that platform at that lower price point. We kind of expected a little bit more about that. We didn't see a lot of it though, and I think that's twofold. One, I think that because of the capacity limitations and memory limitations, I think a lot of the PC OEM said, no, we're just going to focus on those fewer high-end SKUs that we know that we can ship. But there was some news. Obviously, Intel announced their Core Ultra 3 series, which is really targeted towards there. And Dell introduced their XPS 13, really targeted for that segment, at a $599 price point for students and $699 for everyone else, starting price points. So it's a 13-inch laptop really designed for that student, mass consumer, excuse me, that student and mass consumer segment of the market. So And I believe Qualcomm also made an announcement around a future chipset that we'll be seeing, which is ARM-based for future kind of price-sensitive PCs. Damien, you attended that one.
Yeah, I think generally things were focused on the higher end of that space, but Qualcomm did discuss their new Snapdragon C processor, which is separate to the Snapdragon X and the elite tiers. It's meant to be a lower tier, entry tier processor, and it's sort of meant to compete in that Apple Neo space in the $300 to $500 market. Not strictly an AI PC, but it does come with an NPU, and it is designed in mind of running some amount of agentic compute locally on the device. And I believe HP, ASUS, and Lenovo are all primary OEM partners that will be shipping that for Windows devices.
Yeah, it's interesting things coming out of Qualcomm. It used to be not just with Qualcomm, but with every company. A lot of these more advanced capabilities would start at the flagship and then trickle down over time. But a lot of things that are coming out of companies like Qualcomm now are definitely AI native, even at the lower tiers. Have some sort of AI capability, so that's very interesting. Damien, while we're with you, I know there were some things around handheld gaming as well. You mentioned gaming in the context of RTX Spark, but even outside of that, I think there was a lot of handheld gaming stuff going on at Computex as well, right?
Yes, there was. There were a few really interesting handhelds that came out. There was the MSI handheld. There was a One Player X and a Acer that were all kind of similar to the Steam Deck design, where you have a built-in screen and the side controllers like the Nintendo Switch. They varied a little bit in battery size and comfortability and portability. I think the Acer generally was a little heavy on one end to support, so it wouldn't necessarily be ideal for holding for a long period of gaming, or even if you were laying down in bed and trying to game above your head, that wouldn't be super comfortable. I particularly liked the One X player that's supported by the Intel Arc GX Extreme. I liked it because of the distribution of weight and the fact that you can detach the controllers, kind of like on the Nintendo Switch, and connect those to a separate controller device and dock the system for connecting to a screen or a monitor, and even having a multiplayer game mode, as I'm a big fan of couch co-op games. But then kind of to Jim's perspective, I know that he was more of a fan of the MSI device, just because it was much more lightweight, and I think it felt very comfortable to hold.
So yeah, matter of fact, it was nice because it had a nice weight distribution on it. It was not just lightweight, but it didn't lean forward or lean back when you put it in your hands. And that wasn't the only one. I mean, there was also another one from Asus ROG, their Republic of Gamers brand, that is kind of an upgrade of what they've already got. And it has an upgraded screen, matter of fact, and it has kind of a rubberized type of feel to the hands. It was probably the highest end in terms of those graphics capabilities. But in terms of overall performance, I'm not sure that it's, I think some of the ones introduced that Damien talked about with the Intel Arc G3 processor probably going to have some of the higher performance capabilities on
it. So there might not have been, but aside from form factor and kind of just regular kind of evolution of performance, was there anything around what was introduced with handheld gaming that was kind of a leap function? Either, hey, we've never seen this in handheld gaming before, or hey, they brought in AI capability especially with graphics generation. Was there anything that we could around there, or was it pretty much kind of continued evolution of form factors, but also just the normal march of performance capability?
I think it was kind of a natural evolution, although I will say that the Asus version that has the AMD Ryzen AI Z2 Extreme processor, I have to remember that because it's such a long name, I think that had the best display. And that was impressive for a handheld. At least that was my perspective. I think from a handheld, the display really stood out to me. Damien?
Well, I know that Acer tried a couple of ones that are kind of evolutionary, but I think push the boundary a little bit. Their larger handheld one, the Predator Atlas, I think it's called, is unfortunately really heavy and doesn't feel as comfortable as some of the other ones. They had an alternative approach to this, which was the Acer Nitro, which is supposed to be a really lightweight portable gaming system. But unfortunately, I think it's a little too lightweight and it doesn't perform as well because it's relying on streaming the game source instead of running it locally, I believe. And also the buttons didn't feel quite as tactile as some of the higher end systems, which I think will be more common as people try to compete with the affordable gaming platforms.
Yeah, the one thing that I think that still stands out for this segment is how do you get people to use it as a mobile device? Because most people still use it, as Damien pointed out earlier, on the couch or in their office chair. They're not, I don't see these things in airports. I don't see them on trains. I don't see people using them as a mobile device. And so I think that's one of the challenges that segment still faces.
Yeah, I think I would consider them more portable devices than they are mobile. But maybe it's a connectivity thing. Maybe it's not only Wi-Fi but getting 5G and maybe 6G at some point in there. Part of the problem is depending on the game. If it's like a first-person shooting game, the latencies involved, from a click-to-pixel type situation might be prohibitive. Maybe that's why people aren't doing it. I know in Asian markets it's a little bit more prevalent with doing the handheld gaming, but maybe we're just not in the right region, Jim.
Maybe.
Well, I think part of the issue is also general consumer perception. These are largely still seen as just gaming devices or recreational play devices when they're moving more and more away from the mobile device into the mobile personal PC device, especially because they're dockable and they can be connected to any monitor or any screen so quickly and easily. You could see people sort of replacing their primary entertainment systems with one of these. So they come home, they drop in their mobile gaming system, and then that's their TV, that's their Netflix, that's their internet connection. It could even be a portable desktop for them if the controls are far more advanced than something like a mobile phone or even a tablet. And it has a higher compute capacity.
For sure. So given that, Jim, Damien, was there anything else that we maybe missed from Computex?
It's a PC show, so you got to talk about the PCs. And while they're still evolutionary, I mean, Acer introduced some new models of their laptops that have different colors of aluminum casings. So kind of interesting. MSI had different, they actually took a Van Gogh or two different Van Gogh paintings and actually put them into the case. And they're actually kind of a 3D molded case. So it's kind of interesting. Nothing that really stands out too much, but really my favorite still from the show was, and I really like the ASUS PCs, not only because of their ceramic cases, but especially the ASUS Duo, the ZenBook Duo, where you have basically, it folds up. It's kind of a trifold, but you have one display. And when you fold that up, you have the keyboard, the Bluetooth keyboard. And then you can fold it up again and pull the keyboard off, and you've got dual displays. Now they have the ZenBook Duo in 14-inch for the consumer product, and then for the ASUS ROG, for the kind of the gamer version, they have two dual 16-inch screens. So if I had to pick out a winner, it would be that.
Very cool. Damien, any last thoughts?
Well, I think there was also a decent amount of focus on physical AI at the conference. Yeah, there was a lot around personal computing, monitors, specialized desktop setups, but physical AI had a big presence, especially in some of the keynotes and presentations and from Qualcomm. They talked a little bit about their Arduino partnership. They have the Arduino Ventuno Q developer focus board that's going to be coming out August this year at $299. And then there's also the Dragon Wing IQ10 sort of network robotics controller that they're envisioning sort of for a large scale autonomous retail applications or warehouse applications, anything like that, where you need a device on the edge right next to the network controlling all of your agentic physical processes.
Well, it'll definitely be interesting. A lot of the companies that we mentioned today at Computex have a few upcoming events themselves, where I'm sure some of their some of their announcements that could have been said at Computex will likely be announced at some of those shows. So we'll definitely stay tuned as we take a look at how the rest of the year progresses. Thanks again for joining us with another TIRIAS cast. And please do like, subscribe, and comment. We'd love to hear from you guys. If you have any questions on anything that was discussed today, but also if there's anything you'd like us to discuss in future episodes, please let us know.
And please look for us at other events. I will be attending Qualcomm's Investor Day. Damien will be at Automate, the Industrial Automation Conference in Chicago coming up. We'll also be at AMD's Advancing AI, as well as Hot Chips, and many other events throughout the end of the year. So look for that. And also look for our new AI forecast and simulation forecast that will be released in a white paper here next week.
And it's easy to flag us down. Either look for the ponytails or the purple shirts. It's very easy to flag us down. So thanks again for joining us. Looking forward to engaging with you guys. And we'll see you at the next TIRIAS cast.